Kiara.
Yes.
Actually, I need to do that again.
Okay. Take two.
Take two. My name is Aaron Covington, and I am here with Kiara Barnes, a director, writer, industry pro, and class is in session. All right, Kiara, we're here. We're good now. We're set. Everything's recording.
Beautiful.
Um, so yeah, you've been in the industry a while, right? And you've been working some assistant jobs.
hmm
Can you talk about that just a little bit, like in brief, where you are and maybe how you started that?
Yeah. So I've been assisting for some time now. I won't say my how long because it just feels like a long time, but I got into it. I did an HBO program. Then it was HBO Community Impact Program just to help people get on set. And I had the opportunity to be a director's assistant, which was fantastic because I did not go to film school. So my time assisting has been that film school for me. So I guess
Oh
I'll
wait,
say,
that's fantastic. What
yeah,
program was that again?
it was HBO Community Impact, but now it's
HBO Community
called
Impact.
Action to Access. It's under Warner Media. So it's a great program. If you struggle, if you have a desire to be in the industry, work on set, that is the program to really get your foot in the door. Because it's the
Yeah,
industry is very is a lot of gatekeeping. So that's how you
yeah,
want
for
to start.
sure. And man, that's a great program.
It is.
I didn't even know that existed.
I mean, Warner, as DEI is being rolled back, they seem to still have a lot of their initiative programs. And
Yeah.
so it's not just to get on set, it's writers, directors. If you want to produce, they have a lot of great pipeline programs that
Hmm.
I think, depending whatever level you're on, people can look into.
That's dope. I hope somebody hears that from this video and looks into it and gets a job.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, spreading the
possible.
word. Okay, so you did that program and you were starting as a assistant to
Directors,
directors or director's assistant?
yes. I was
Okay.
assistant to directors on one show because they staffed me on a show. It was like 2 months. I had three directors. This is like when I really decided, like, I want to be a director, and it
Hmm.
was great training. And after that, I started working with producers, which taught me a lot about managing budgets, hiring
Hmm.
crew, just the physical production aspect of this world that it
Yeah.
so much information that I think film school may not teach you, but I don't know because I didn't go to film school, but I feel like it was the education I needed to
Yeah.
really understand this industry from a production, physical production standpoint.
Yeah. It sounds like a very practical um, learning experience, which is great.
Yeah.
Man, so yeah, congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And so now you've been an assistant for a few years and a
hmm
pretty high level assistant, really,
Yeah.
to producers and to directors. And you're just wondering, looking to try to turn a knob, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
become like a working director or
hmm
some such thing?
Yeah. To get to the next level of my career, because
Yeah,
the beauty of being an assistant, you learn a lot. You learn a
yeah,
lot. You network. You meet a lot of people, but it's so easy I find to get pigeonholed in that position because if you're a good assistant, people want to keep you.
hmm,
So to transition out of that, that
yeah,
is the gray area, the difficult part. But if you can make it out, the world is your oyster. But to get out of
yeah.
that is it can be a little difficult.
All right, so let's focus on the creative process and talk about, I like to focus on writing right now.
hmm
We can talk about just general artistry and stuff. Because you mentioned you were working on a short film.
hmm
Let's talk about that a little bit. What's that about?
It is. I still have to flesh it out some. So, but it
Okay,
is
so we're working on it. We're like
where
working on it.
it's in motion. Like it's.
Yeah.
I have the idea. It's based off loosely based off a real life college experience. My roommate and I we just get into where two girls get into mischief as they try to go to a club on South Beach for one of the girls to meet to see their crush. And while they're on that journey, trouble ensues. So they're just trying to get out of what is prevalent in Miami right now is sex trafficking. So it
Hmm.
is a dark comedy, but I also wanted to have a message. But these ideas are still trying to be fleshed out. It's very new, I guess is the word.
Okay, okay. So it
Yeah.
might not even be worth like going into plot details right now.
We can. I have like I outlined it, but it's still very rough.
Okay. Well, tell me everything you got that's like specific, right? So they're coming from where?
They're coming. It's the first weekend back in school, and before school starts, they want to go to this all white party that happens every year. Um,
Where is their school?
their school is in Miami,
Okay,
so
so they're just going across town, really.
yeah, they're just going 20 minutes down the highway. But this is
Okay.
back in 2010s.
Oh,
No
so it's like
Uber, a
a
period
new
piece.
period, a nouveau period piece.
Yeah, so it's no Uber. Social media is not really a big thing. And back in the day when you're in college, I got $5, $10 in the gas tank if you could take me to clubs. So
Yeah.
they get invited to this party, a fraternity party that these girls had a summer glow up. So they're now cute and they want to go to this party and they have to figure out a way to get there. And they have dorm mates that are from different walks of life who
Hmm.
are crazy party girls and they make it to the club. However, they somehow get stuck in this sex trafficking ring. It's it's all very
Hmm.
it's kind of I never really said it out loud. So
Yeah. And like you said, you're still kind of outlining
mhm.
in the outline phase, not taking it to script yet. Um, so you're writing this by yourself or with someone else?
I'm writing it by myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your writing process like? Let's help you get through this writing process and figure out a couple drafts.
Yeah.
So then you know what doesn't work, and eventually you'll get to what really works, right?
Mhm.
So
So
you have
my
like an idea
go
and
ahead.
a premise here.
Mhm.
Go ahead. What were you gonna
No,
say?
no, sorry. You go ahead. You go ahead.
You have an idea and a basic premise here, and short films are tough because they don't follow the same writing rules as something longer, even a half hour.
Mhm.
Short films is kind of like you build up the situation, and then there's like one twist or reveal at the end. Those are like the most satisfying short films. It's like you build some tension with comedy or with drama or whatever devices you're using, whatever genre you're in. And then you have a reveal that's like, you know, shocking or clever or just a turn of the tables just enough to, I guess be memorable
Mhm.
or whatnot. So it looks like you kind of have that, right? The main tension is they're in this sex trafficking potential situation
Mhm.
and there's some twist that gets them out of that and either to the party or to a realization that maybe the party wasn't
What it was
something
supposed
they
to be.
needed to be doing or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's all a warning signal. Depends, yeah.
Mhm.
Depends on the message you want to deliver. So what let me ask you this.
Okay.
What is stopping you from starting the draft?
Honestly, um one discipline and insecurity. Uh because as I'm writing, I'm like, am I doing this right? Is this good? And so those thoughts kind of cloud my judgment as I'm writing. And I know people
Mm-hmm.
say writers just need to write,
Mm-hmm.
but, and then also too, because of the positions I've held in the past, I'm writing and I'm like, budgetarily, could I really actually do this? Like,
Right.
so then I'm like, and then I stop and then I put it down, then I go and frolic and then come back days later and then write a couple of things and go away, you know? So it's, it's just overthinking, I will say. It's just
Yeah.
literally what's stopping me.
You said a couple things that are interesting there. The first one that I remember is you said the adage of writers have to write, right?
Hmm.
What does that mean to you? If you were like explaining that, and even why that's a not something that's pulling you into writing, something that kind of like
Pushes your way.
still is like a push, yeah, still is like an invisible barrier to you because it may be how you're
Yeah.
defining it to yourself.
Mm. Because how I pictured it, how I, when I think about that phrase, I think about like exercise and a muscle. So you have to like strengthen that muscle. And sometimes, I know for me personally, things naturally come easy for me. And so when
Hmm.
things are a little bit more difficult, I kind of like, why am I not getting this? Or why do I perceive that I'm not getting this? But that adage to me, it just means the more you do it, the more you strengthen and train that muscle. And, you know,
Yeah,
my lack
yeah.
of discipline is, it could
Well,
be a thing.
I think in response to that, because you said like things usually come easy to you,
Mm-hmm.
you got to kind of make it easy and take
Mm.
and take some of the pressure off. Like I tried to get back in the gym like a couple years ago. COVID really held me back and just life, I guess. In terms
Mm-hmm.
of lifting heavy, I was still being active, but I was like, man, let me get back on these squats. And I put the weight on the squat and I was like, this feels different
Leg
than
shaking.
it did. And I had a light weight too. I'm like, oh yeah, let me start back and like build up. So I was like, the bar, you know, you don't have to know anything about weightlifting, but people that do, I was like, let me do the bar a few times and I'll do tens and I'll just get up to 25s on the bar. That's easy. And it was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, okay, I got to make it easy on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my 40s now, so I'm like, let me just start air squats. Let
The
me start with
basic.
the 10 pounds. Like I got to go all the way back,
Yeah.
make it easy on myself. So writing, you can make easy on yourself, just getting started. I'm not a huge outline person in my in
Really.
my in my personal process,
Mm-hmm.
um, because of how I start on scripts actually. And I'm
Mm.
trying to write some long form things,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that I can get through it, but on that, like a short story or trying to start a novel, like the outline is more important for me personally.
Yeah.
So, but on scripts, like I get the idea and I'll write down, you know, I'll do I need to know where I'm going. So I'll get the beginning. Usually where you start is the beginning. That's your premise or whatever. You know
Mm-hmm.
the genre and the danger you want your characters to get into. But then I need to know where they're gonna go or what I want it to look like at the end. So I'll jot an
Mm-hmm.
idea for the end down. Then I need them to kind of know what happens in the middle. And I have a beginning, middle, and an end. And that's a good starting point. Not that I get right into the script then, but I know these things. Or sometimes I'll write these things in a final draft. So I think this could be interesting if I
Mm.
can do a screen share here
Okay.
with a blank final draft. Okay. You see the screen?
Yeah.
You see anything else?
No. Just your screen
Okay.
and you.
Okay. Great. I'll make sure. Close all my other windows.
I was
Or
like,
my
close your tabs.
so like once I have the outline, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are some tricks. We're gonna jump to a script, especially for a short film. I think you can jump in a little sooner. But you can also use a script to outline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you might not know anything and you'll come in here and go, should we use your story? Maybe we use your story just as like a blueprint.
Okay.
Okay, so I know. Okay, let's say we don't know even any scenes yet, right? We'll
Mm-hmm.
start right with we got two friends. We just give them names K and B.
C. Okay, that works.
C.
Yeah.
Get invited to a party.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go K and C hitch a ride with friends. They get into trouble, sex trafficking ring, and then they end up, you know, they escape trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and then they make it to the party, but decide to go home. Kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
sentimental ending, right?
Yeah.
So you have something like that on a basic, and maybe you have some scene ideas in your head. So what I
Mm-hmm.
would do, I would be like, I would just write those scene ideas like where they fit.
Mm.
So maybe I know they get invited to the party, and we'll do a scene heading. Interior, okay. Let's see, dorm room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that, and once I know that, and I write it down on paper, I'm like, okay, they're in the dorm room. Kay is ironing, whatever. It's okay. Irons her skirt. C refreshes email until the invite comes through, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's literally a scene right there. And
Mm-hmm.
now, once I know more, I can be like, hey, irons her skirt while C is at her computer. Now, this is like the second draft, the second turnaround, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to get out tonight. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
just forms like that. So then I would come hitchhike with friends. Maybe I don't know how that happens. They get into trouble. Maybe this happens at a gas station
I have a gas station in my script, so great.
night. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
know that something happens at the gas station where they get into trouble, you know? And I know that this is exterior Miami Beach mansion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have something like this, and I can add more scenes anywhere, whatever scenes I have, but like this look allows me to sketch it out slowly.
Oh, I like your approach.
So like there's no pressure at any time to finish the whole thing or to make it perfect. That's
Mm-hmm.
in the process of revising. So like if I have this is like my work for a day, maybe 2 days, depending on how hard it is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I come back the next day and I'm like, oh yeah, this happens in the dorm room. And I was thinking about it last night. This happens in the lobby of the dorm. They have another scene where they run into like you probably want some conflict here, so somebody that doesn't like them, the
Yeah.
RA tells them, RA curfew. I don't even know what it is, but last strike.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And now I can take time. I can take a week. I can take a couple of days, or however long to think of what goes into that scene more.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just like on the page, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I'm starting to see what it is. And then if I'm like, man, come back 2 weeks later, this dorm scene's not coming together. It's gone. It's
Mm-hmm.
gone. It's just gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one way that I use pretty consistently, like just to build that first draft out, however long it is. Like
Yeah.
See, a short story, maybe you want it to be like 14 pages. Let's just say, maybe shorter, maybe longer, but let's just say 14. Your first draft, you might hit up 25 pages, 30 pages. You got to come back and revise anyway.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Or you might top out at like 9 pages and you're like, I feel like it should be a little longer, whatever it is, but you're gonna come back. You're just gonna come back.
Hmm.
It's definitely better to think of it not as like finishing something, but as like constantly chipping away at something. Or if you think
Mm.
about owning a house, right? Your house is never finished when you own a house.
Mm.
It's like we're focusing on the yard this summer. We're gonna plant some new grass. In the winter, we got to patch up the roof. You know what I mean? Oh, I got to get these windows. You're always just like adding to the house. The house is never finished. And a script, it gets to a point where you can share it with people,
Yeah.
but it's never really finished. We're not selling scripts, we're selling movies, you know?
Hmm.
So you get it to the point where you're sharing it with people, but then maybe they'll have notes, or definitely when you get to set, things change. Or even in pre-production, you're like, okay, this location is kind of not like the location. We got to make some adjustments. So the script has to change, and then in post, you might change a little more with ADR or whatever the case, or reshoots.
Yeah.
So it helps not to think of the script of having to be perfect. This takes perfection out of it.
Mm.
It has to be well, to a point where it has a full story. It's
Yeah.
grammatically correct. That's when you send it out. But even then, you can't be too like precious about it because the process changes it too.
Yeah. I think that's what I struggle with, the perfection aspect of it, because I want everything to
Hmm.
be perfect. But
And the thing is, you're like everything has to be perfect. So as I write this sentence, it has to be perfect.
because I always
But
go back and reread and edit.
I'm glad you said that. Let me finish what I was gonna say. But I'm really glad
Okay.
you said that because yeah, like this paragraph doesn't need to be, especially we're on computers, but it's true if you're not, if you're writing with pen and pencil too. Like perfection just comes from the consistent work and not from the one time. Like, this if I'm looking at this collection of nonsense, but I'm like, okay, actually I just want letters here. Then you know what I mean? Like it's just time to come back and like, oh, now it's perfect. I have to do more to make it perfect. So you have to shift your mind to thinking that as you put it down, it needs to be perfect. It needs to
Hmm.
be perfect at the end of the journey, not during the journey.
Mm.
Because what you said that was so good is like you go back. This is the other thing. I don't go back until I get to the end. This is not necessarily on a first draft. You can write a first draft in any way you want to. It doesn't have to be chronological. Scenes come into your head, you jot them down. Maybe even jot them in a separate document before you put them in your main document. Like it's all fine.
Hmm.
But don't revise a scene until you finish the draft. The most important, if anything rings in your head, it's just this phrase, finish the draft, finish the draft. And you're like, "Oh, okay, what about this scene? Did you finish the draft? Don't go back to that scene until you finish the draft
Mm-hmm.
because you'll get stuck again in this perfection mode. But that scene can't be perfect unless the script is perfect. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Say that. Oh my goodness, I don't want to do that either. I'll just close this up. Anyway, but yeah, that's what you got to think about, or something like that. In that world of you're making it perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You're
Hmm.
making it perfect over time. Um, right.
Yeah. That's good. That that actually helps me with my I think this will help me with my procrastination, because I do get stuck in a perfection loop or cycle. And then that's when
Hmm.
the second guessing come. And that's when I'm like, you know what? Why do I call myself a writer? You know,
Yeah,
I just, and then I put it down and never go back.
yeah.
But just getting it done.
Because if you think about like a classical idea of a writer, think
Mm-hmm.
about this. Think about this. Like a person out in the woods who's writing their novel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go out in the woods for a week and write it and finish. In that like imaginary tale, they're out there for like months and seasons, maybe a couple years, you know, because that's
Mm-hmm.
how long it takes to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you think of any writer, it's like they're pulling pages out of the typewriter or the desk is full of papers because it took all that mess to make something good,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, oh, they just sat down and brrrt, then there would be no mess.
Right.
And our vision of a writer would be somebody in a minimalist room with a pencil and a perfect manuscript. But our vision, even of a writer from like growing up and everything, is somebody living in mess and their brain is all over the place and they have all these notes and a whiteboard here and a corkboard here and all these things because that's the process. The
Mm-hmm.
process makes perfect, not
Yeah.
the act, the process.
Let me write that down. You dropping some gems.
Great.
Some real gems. No, you are. Like this is the session I needed to make me calm down because I'm very straight and narrow, which
Yeah.
you can't really be like that in this industry anyway. So it's, you know,
Okay, did I close that screen
yeah,
share? Okay,
yeah, he
I'm
did.
gonna just do this. I might open it back up. I want to put it on the desktop.
I do like the way you approach. But how do you know like an idea is worth exploring, or do you explore all your ideas?
Hmm. What do you mean by that?
So I don't know. Like sometimes I'm out and about, and I was like, oh, this idea, this seems like it will be cool. I jot it down,
Hmm.
and then I'm like, should I, flesh this out more to see what it's like, or just let it go? Because I imagine like as a writer, or just as a creative person in general, you just get so many ideas, and I'm sure you don't explore all the ideas that come to you.
Right. That's a good question, and it's tough to answer in a way. I
Hmm.
would say that on a first level, if I have an idea, if I can't think of an ending in the middle,
Hmm. Just
then I
throw it
won't
away.
write it. And if I can't think of like in writing, the story kind of has to cascade in a logical way. Those
Hmm.
are the most satisfying stories. So if I can't think of that, the cascade means here's like the premise, the basic idea, and maybe here's the ending. And like, can I think of what this relates to that allows me to tell the story? What I mean by that is no story is just about the actions that happen in the story. They're tied to something else. They're about your personal struggle, or it's a commentary on husband and wife relationships, or it's really an analogy for whatever it might be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So tying that analogy or that thematic concern to the characters, and then it should all start to make sense and feel like it kind of tumbles forward to me. So that's one way I discern. And another is just like, okay, where am I at in my career? What kind of
Mm.
thing do I think I need to focus on? Is this that? And then just
Yeah.
try to prioritize to try to prioritize that, which is something I'm really constantly working at and learning
Mm,
um, what that means. So it is tough, but it's easier when I have one or two things that I'm excited about.
yeah.
Because then that's where my main focus is. And I try not to be like working on something. And even if I think of another idea, I try not to like change my priority too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like something is should be priority one or becomes priority one as I like give it and making more progress on it. Obviously if there's money involved, that becomes priority one. If I'm working on an actual job,
Yeah.
um, and then I try to keep the other one alive, either by thought or you only. It helps to take a break from whatever you're writing sometimes, and like do another brain activity. So I might
Mm,
work a certain number of hours a day, and then one day or even a couple days a week might like, okay, let me just take a break in the middle. So maybe I'm not writing so much one day, but to take my brain to something else, and that kind of helps me stay without getting too obsessed about one thing and too in the weeds where I can't see a creative solution to problems on that main project. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
No, it makes
Yeah.
sense. It makes sense. A lot of sense. I think for me, I just got to come back to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jot some stuff down and conjure up a beginning, middle, and end,
Mhm.
however long that takes. Once you know those, and even if you do it like in the method I was showing you on the final draft page, or if you do it in your head or just in your notebook, however you get it, then you put it in the final draft
Mhm.
and just start breaking it out and then scene by scene.
Yeah.
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 Because what's also great about talking to you is you've seen a lot of scripts.
Mhm.
So so that part of it doesn't need to be explicitly stated. You've seen a lot of
Yeah.
scripts. You know how scripts should read, so that like this is a great episode. It could tell the scene leads to the next scene to the next scene. Like,
Mhm.
oh, here are the side characters. They're in here with good timing. Obviously, that's for a bigger project than a short, but
Yeah.
you know how a good script feels, or the ways that a good script can feel.
Yeah.
Um, so we don't have to go over that anymore. But then that's what you're working towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Money wise, you brought this up too. How do you think about it with the budget? With a short film, it's really tough. Um, you know numbers probably better than I do, but you just think about a couple things. One is, are multiple characters doing the same thing? Can I make them one character? Can I make them fewer? You know, especially when you
Mhm.
got like a situation like this, you might write like this henchman and that henchman, and then like this girl and that girl from the door. Can you make those fewer people? That's one.
Yeah.
Two, can you combine or eliminate locations? Like, do I need this whole nother scene, or can like a two person exchange at the end of this scene cover that drama?
Yeah.
Start eliminating locations, and then and you kind of just go from there in terms of mentally calculating. You know, okay, this is a real funny bit, but okay, now they're in the back of a storage truck. How do I not put them in the back of a, what I mean, it's an
Yeah.
18 wheeler
Yeah.
truck
Because
with a
my
bunch of
brain is like
girls. Yeah,
insurance,
yeah,
extras, all the things. And I'm like, is this, let's dial this back here. Because
yeah.
this,
And it's like instead of a 18 wheeler, can it be in a warehouse somewhere? We can get it like an old dusty warehouse downtown for a
mm-hmm.
day. That's like 2,000. Where 18 wheeler is like 2,000 for the truck, get fuel and somebody to watch the truck, and then
Driver.
like you said,
Yes.
insurance and stuff. So
Yeah.
adds up so quick.
And it's a beauty and a curse because I feel like, and I could be wrong, people who don't necessarily know about budgets. It's like, oh yeah, let's just write. No limiting beliefs. But then it's like
Yeah,
me who thinks about that now and it's like, let's dial this back. And then I
yeah,
put it down and never come back. So
yeah.
I just
Right.
gotta
That's
keep
another
coming
way
back.
to that's another way to kind of stop yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But I look at it as opportunity
Mm.
because the whole thing about writing really is not how good your writing is. You could take a million classes, read all the English grammar books, write poetry, have this great prose, but writing is about your creativity. How
Mhm.
creative are you at problem solving? You
Mhm.
know, like who's the greatest writer? Nobody could tell you, you know. There's only writers people like more than others.
Mhm.
So there's no like it's not like sports where like, oh, this writer is the greatest writer because his grammar is always correct and he uses the right adjectives all the time. Like, but that's not how it works. It's like you like their storytelling because of their creativity.
Mhm.
So whenever there's an obstacle or a restriction, that's a chance to be more creative.
Mhm.
And that's where when you're 99% of the filmmaking population, you really get a chance to stand out.
Mhm.
If you're Chris Nolan, you know, Odyssey's coming out. If you're Chris Nolan, the bigger, the better. That is now your brand. You're the biggest filmmaker in the world, you know? His creativity
Yeah.
comes in thinking about things with no boundaries.
Mhm.
Everybody else is, you know, almost everybody else, creativity comes from how do I push at the boundaries that I have,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
How do I be more creative? Which you can see. Um, just trying to think of a specific example, but there's not one better than others. But like your lower budget movies, like how creative are they? And sometimes, you know, you can lean on your characters and
Mhm.
their wit and charm that you write or that the actors bring to it. But whatever the case may be, you know, how much more creative can you be to show this thing? You know,
Mhm.
if you want to show these women getting in a sex trafficking kerfuffle, that means 100 things to 100 different people.
Yeah.
But what in your experience or your base of knowledge and your imagination can you do to show us it in a way that nobody that we haven't really seen? Or if it is a
Mhm.
scene that we kind of seen, can you do it in a way that makes that interesting? Either flips it or is more aggressive or is more nuanced or more comical to make it stand out.
Yeah. Okay.
And you mentioned dialogue before
Oh
when we
yeah.
talked before.
Mhm.
So you don't have to worry about oh, you know, people always talk about writers. Oh, they have all these voices in their head, these different characters. I think that's like just a way to talk about it. That's not necessarily something that it makes you think that you have to think this way to be a good writer.
Hmm. What do you mean? Explain that a little bit
It
more.
it makes you think that like, well, there's this like I used to call this like the Michael Jordan paradox, right? Because
Mhm.
Michael Jordan came up in the era, and so there's all these interviews and all these things, and it's like the Jordan mentality. To be a pro, you have to, you know, approach it like Michael Jordan. No, you don't. Maybe to be the greatest ever, you do. But to make a good living, to be a good pro, you don't have to think like Michael Jordan. He's the best to ever do it. So some writers are telling you that are already published, like, I have all these voices in my head. It's like that's how it works for you. All humans don't even think alike. People don't have it. In a monologue, some people see pictures and words. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So a way to think about writing is not necessarily especially early on, because you might not even know the characters that well. But
Mhm.
not to think about it in terms of like I had different voices and they're telling me different things. It's like you're breaking down a problem,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
So what you want to do is character. Okay. Hello and see. Goodbye. Like they have I'm trying to think of how the right way that I want to say this. I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. But maybe like she's like, "Hello, I want candy." Now, based on whatever your theme is, that could be
Mhm.
C's response. It doesn't have to be a whole different voice. She could say, "It's too early for candy."
Mhm.
But that's my favorite, and I want it. This is, super bad dialogue, but I can't let you have it. Okay, something simple like that, right?
Yeah.
And this is mainly from Kay's point of view. We know what she wants.
Mhm.
So now what I can do is come back and say, okay, who is C in this scene? Is it her mom? Is it a friend, sister? Maybe that's her sister, right?
Yeah.
Now? Let me write the scene. Let me leave Kay's dialogue mostly intact. Let me write the scene for C. Because I'm thinking like I got two actors here and I want to get the best out of both of them.
Mhm.
So I got Kay. It's maybe her scene, or maybe she's the protagonist of the story. But C, I don't want to waste having C on set. Otherwise, why do I have him? And
Right.
also, C wants to have something interesting to do. Nobody wants to be just feeding questions to the protagonist. So if that can be helped, man, and especially if C is one of my main characters, then I'll come back. She said, "I want candy." It's like now her response is, "This early, I'll get in trouble if you get candy." So now I know something about C. She's looking
Yeah.
over K, or it's telling me more. But that's my
Yeah.
favorite, and I want it, so I'm revising it for C, and I'm like, it's my favorite too, but we have to follow the rules. It's already a little better without me having to
Mhm.
like go into a trance and speak through these two characters. You know what I mean? That I just created.
Yeah.
And then, now you're just in the process of revising and you're like, man, C actually has some good lines here. What if she says, what if she's a little more dramatic? She's like, my stomach is caving in. Like, let me not write what I was gonna write.
I'm
Like,
curious to know.
a building is kind of the same. A building imploded. I want candy right fucking now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like, is that who Kay is or not? You would know a little bit more because you're writing a story, and I'm just making this up on the spot.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying
No.
Kay's a little dramatic, and she's like, a little bit of a diva, And she's like, we get in trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll get in trouble. You getting in trouble is not my problem. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it just takes a couple passes, and I'm just presenting the two sides of the argument
Mhm.
at first, and then revising them as I go through. So yeah, let the story flow through whatever your main character is, or if it's two people,
Mhm.
then come back and determine like, okay, when they have a conversation with this person, how important is this person? And you know how
Yeah.
call sheets work, right? One, two, three on a call sheet.
Yeah.
Well, if this person is in multiple scenes, then when they have dialogue, I need to like make it a little sharper. This is a character that is important to the script. If they're only in
Mhm.
one scene and maybe all they're doing is feeding the main character, maybe that's okay. They're just there. There's a little exposition scene that's going to happen. Um,
Yeah.
but if they were like in my top five on the call sheet, I want to give them more. That's going to make the script feel better.
Yeah. Okay. You're
And
calming my nerves.
again, like the overriding like lessons here, or like things to keep in mind, are I wouldn't even come back to this dialogue until when?
Finish the
I
draft.
finished the draft because
Hmm.
that's going to tell me more about what that dialogue needs to be is having a finished draft. If I
Hmm.
keep going back to it, like I'm only ever working from the base of knowledge I have at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more to figure out in the story. So once I get to the end of the story, I have a bigger base of knowledge. So when I go back to the first part, right from the top, since now I know have a picture of how it ends in the last draft, I'm like, oh, I know how to make every scene a little bit sharper. And then the end
Mm-hmm.
gets sharper. And then I go back again and I know how to make it a little bit better, which makes the ending a little better. And then now the whole thing finally flows and I'm like, everything is where I want it to be.
Yeah.
So finishing the draft and focusing on revisions. So I was talking to a guy just yesterday and it was like, oh man, what was it about revisions? When you hand somebody a draft or email it to them and you're like, this is my first draft, that should almost always be a lie.
Mm.
That's really like your fifth draft or your sixth draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't need to see every iteration that you've gone through. It's almost like you have you finish that rough draft where every scene isn't even a complete scene, but you got from beginning to end. I count that's literally one draft.
Mm.
So then I start my revision and I go start making scenes a little bit bigger, a little bit more hefty. My action descriptions are starting to get better. I'm introducing characters better. Dialogue's a little better. Get to the end. That's the second draft.
Mm-hmm.
Then I start over and I know more about more scenes and now it's more full. Then I do one more. Now I feel like, oh, this is pretty good. So then you do your final pass. That's like five drafts to get to one finished draft. One is like, I can
Yeah.
get some feedback on this draft. I can send this to somebody. I can start really having other voices let me know if this is any good or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Finish the draft.
finish the draft.
That's my goal this week to like really.
Um, so as far as you, let's go on to the next thing.
Okay.
'Cause I think that's a good start just to help you get into writing and not see it as one thing that needs to be everything
Mm-hmm.
or one attempt and you're not a good writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just think of that image that you had as like a kid and like who's a writer or somebody that has a lot of drafts. You got to go through a lot of drafts, which means every time you write, you don't have to write perfectly. You're
Mm-hmm.
building perfection. You're not, you're building perfection. But you talked about wanting to be a director, which is really the hardest thing
To get into.
to ex to find a consensus of how people got into.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody, 100% everybody in Hollywood has a different story about how they got to where they are as a whatever the occupation is, like gaffer, a makeup person, a writer, but those stories will share some commonality. But if you ask all the directors how they became TV directors or whatever, there's almost like it seems like there's almost nothing in common to getting that first opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think we talked a little bit about all and you mentioned before the Warner Brothers program you were in,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these networks have directing young director programs. I know HBO had one, or maybe that's Warner Brothers, maybe Warner Brothers
Yeah.
slash HBO, and then Apple TV had one just last year,
Yeah.
CBS, Disney, et cetera, et cetera. And it's worth just going to those applications and seeing what the requirements are,
Mm-hmm.
and then working towards meeting all those requirements.
Yeah.
So then you have a short and you have other shorts, you take those shorts, make a reel,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they ask for. That's probably actually the number one
Right.
pathway that can be explained, that can be copied,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
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 But two things to look at for you. One is you have a you have a job in the industry, you know.
Hmm.
So how many people do you work with know you want to direct TV,
Yeah.
you know? And it's not that you're at work like, "Psh, I'm an assistant, but I'm going to direct one day." You don't have to be all like that, but you go out to lunch with people, you talk about things, and it's just like, don't not say it,
Yeah.
when it's conversationally appropriate, What are your aspirations? Oh, I'm just happy to be here. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what all your dynamics are, and so I wouldn't speak to somebody like ruffling feathers that don't need to be ruffled.
Yeah.
But in terms of like your personal life and day to day, it's not something to hide. So
Yeah.
maybe that, whether that's in like friendship conversations and just, you know, like I said, I don't know the work dynamics, so you don't want to ruffle any feathers. You want to keep your job. I'm all about
Yeah.
people keeping their jobs.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it is about just like a human thing of, saying what you want out loud and not hiding from yourself,
Hmm.
and when it's appropriate.
Yeah. I
But
I believe that. I was gonna say I tell almost everybody what I want to do when
well,
it's
you're ahead of the
appropriate.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
The other thing I think
just
is
like get
like
to the next gig.
you have such a proximity to writers and talent
Hmm.
a- and other directors. So, I think you can count all that as your network because it's really going to be that gets you in the spot that you
Yeah.
want to be in. And even with your short film, in terms of casting, maybe, you
Hmm.
know, you might be able to cast a little better than the average person.
Yeah.
um, and getting it to people. But while that is like daunting and hard to like help somebody plot out, what is true is that like having job paths, like you do this that leads to that, that's actually new in human history. Like
Mm.
you go to college and then you find a job and you have a major and you're in this like that stuff, and especially for Black people, we weren't even going to college until, you know, what, the 70s,
I was
1970s?
gonna say the 70s.
Yeah. So I say that to say actually in our DNA to find our place in the world.
Hmm.
That's more natural to humans than it is to say. It's just easier and convenient to be like, you go here, this program leads to this leads to that, and we go there. That's obviously easier and convenient, but we're hardwired to be like, how do I find my spot? How do I figure it out?
How do I blaze this trail? And I guess my another question is because I, writing jobs are also very hard to come by. How do you stay motivated to keep going down your path in this industry? Because that's sometimes I struggle with. Like I know that I'm blessed and I have a great opportunity that I'm heading to that I think is amazing. And but when there's a lot of ebbs and flows in the industry,
Yeah,
and how do you stay motivated when it's life is life, and as the kids say, or you don't know when your next is coming, but like you're destined to be on this path?
yeah.
Because I feel like, and I could be wrong, but everybody who decides to answer the call and really blaze this trail and figure it out, like we got to be some specially unique people to do
bunch of
to
bunch of idiots.
I don't know, like I'm just, and I don't want to go off on a tangent because I can, but I'm like, how do people stay motivated?
I don't know. I mean, I think you said some
That's
interesting
honest.
things there, like. People have, you feel like it's a calling,
Mm-hmm.
or you're really passionate, and those things can keep you. And it's not insane to have ebbs and flows,
Yeah.
to be like, man, I don't know. And that could last however long it lasts, as long as you can still, you have some other job or something. Like, yeah, you might
Mm-hmm.
have ebbs and flows where you really don't feel like it. And even over COVID, I was like, man, do I need to find something else to do? I don't know if the industry is going to bounce back, and it really hasn't yet. But, some things are happening. But still, one thing that stuck with me, I was like, to learn something else, like to become a professional at something else, it's going to take just as much work as this does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but also with something else, I have to start at the beginning. So I have to do the work to get to where I'm at and then do just as much work here. So I was like, I
Yeah.
might as well
Just keep
stay on this
going.
path. When
Yeah.
in your 30s and 40s, it's like, is writing a script or a book harder than like learning,
How to code.
taking 2 years to learn a whole new, occupation, or,
Yeah.
you know, at the professional level. So that's like maybe kind of a practical way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
that maybe doesn't work for everybody, but it was something that made me laugh. I was like, geez, yeah, man. I was looking at some program. I was like, come on. And it was like a program you have to pay for. I was like, I don't have extra money. And then that's going to take, the program is a year, certifications are another 2 years. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have time to go back to college as like
Yeah.
as an undergrad. Uh, so it's like the learning curve for things can be, and then it's also like, well, what can you do with what you do know?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, something like this, you know, teaching, obviously, or just things in the same world that kind of give you a similar creative push, or keep me thinking in this mode, so I'm still motivated to write.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is like you said, like just feeling like I have to do this. This is what. But again, I'm also in a privileged position personally. Like it's hard to give advice because for me, yeah, it's like I'm not going to start over another career, but I have a few credits that people recognize and are still beneficial to me professionally. And if I didn't have
Yeah.
that, I might have to look at life a little differently and make some different decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's
and
real.
life always kind of catches up to you. So yeah, at some point you might just be burned out and like I did what I did. Everything, people like to hammer the guilt home. It's like everything is your own fault. You created the world, but sometimes things happen that are out of your control.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're black in the industry in a country where that's not appreciated. So it's like there wasn't really, sometimes there's not more you could do
Mm-hmm.
given your realities and the realities of the world.
Yeah.
So, those are just like, I think, really realistic ways of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I feel like I'm making, like, you know, some people I went to film school with, for example, um, we graduated in like 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So people around that time, and it's like, if I was talking to them today and I was like, and they wanted to be a writer or director, and I was like, well, do you have a sample, like a writing sample? And they were like, no. Then I'm like, then maybe you don't have the right motivation. If you
Mm.
can't consistently do the things, if you're, can
I hear you.
you still hear me? Doing the things to like give yourself half to move in another, putting in the basic work. My
Burps is dead.
headphones are messing up for me. Turn them off. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You still there?
Yeah, I hear you.
But even like, I'll say this, even when I was doing some improv, I remember talking to a buddy that was in it. We've been doing it for a couple years, or maybe I'd been doing it a little longer than him. And we were talking about, I was like, well, what do you want to do? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to act, man. And I'm like, some people are hobbyists. They just like doing it. It's not that big a deal. I was like, oh man, you got some headshots? He was like, no. I was like, I thought you wanted to act. You know what I mean? Like if
Hmm.
you're not doing the basic to prepare, you're not even in the game.
Yeah.
And like people, they say they want to be a writer. I'm like, you have a sample? They're like, no. Or yeah, you have a sample? They're like, yeah, I wrote something a few years ago. A few years ago, I wrote a new pilot this year. I work in the industry. I write a new pilot every 18 months.
Hmm.
You at least, and I think people look at this as like this creative industry and like things just happen, but nothing just happens. If you think about an artist in any other art form, you'd be like, what's their portfolio like? Is it
Hmm.
updated? Whether it was
Mm.
a musician or a painter, guys like, I got this painting I made, when I was an undergrad 15 years ago, you'd be like, so you got any new work? You trying to be a professional? You want me to put this in a museum? Who are you?
Yeah.
So, and it's toughest for directors because you have to put so much together to make something.
And it's expensive.
It can be really expensive, and nowadays you have people shooting like little shorts and stuff with their friends, and it's on Instagram. And as a director, you don't need to shoot it. If you're doing kind of higher production stuff or you're doing like the festival run, you don't need to shoot a short every year. That
Mm-mm.
could be that could be crazy. Like you said, from a money point, maybe you do one every 2 or every 3 years,
Hmm.
and you have your reel. But then it's like it doesn't hurt for a director to have a pilot or another short that what's their next short? It's like I might not shoot it for 2 or 3 years, but I got a couple ideas or something or an outline for a feature because a lot of times as a director to get in, you got to make that first feature. So
Future.
maybe you don't make a short for a couple times and you save up. Maybe you can shoot a conceptual feature
Hmm.
for 10 or $20,000. That's mainly just like two people talking in a room, three-person cast. There's like two rooms. You know what I mean? Like using
Yeah.
your resources around you to shoot something
Hmm.
like that. And these are just creative ways of looking at it. These aren't necessarily the answers, but you're just thinking of how can I talk, present myself as what I want to be, and how can I be
Yeah.
prepared to take advantage of conversations or opportunities
Yeah.
that arise.
That's real.
Yeah. And again, I'm been more of a writer professionally, so some of my perspective is that. That's why I talk about writing samples and everything. But you know, it doesn't hurt to think about it more corporately.
Mm.
This
Hmm.
industry is very corporate, as you know
Yeah.
firsthand. So it's like, oh yeah, if you're a new person at this corporation and you want a new position, how would you do that?
Right.
You know?
Hmm.
Or if you wanted to switch companies and get a promotion at that company, how would they do that? You gotta get your resume intact.
Yeah.
A creative resume, sure, you have an actual physical resume, but like I said, maybe think about it in terms of a portfolio or kind of like this is what I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And if what you're bringing to the table that doesn't reach the level, like if you put yourself in that position of hiring a director, well, try to figure out what could get me there. Is it one of the programs? Is it, you know, trying to switch departments to like assistant director instead of
Hmm.
direct assistants to the director?
Hmm.
But those are different jobs, and that might not be the ticket, but just thinking about it, like breaking it down. What's a step below? Do I have the qualifications for that? Do I have the qualifications
Hmm.
for this? And how would I make that jump if this were literally just like one large, cold, bureaucratic corporation?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I feel like how the industry is turning now, I think it is a beautiful time for, I will say, the up and coming creative, and because now everybody's turning to YouTube, I feel like.
Hmm.
So it is time for those indie artists to really thrive or at least get a footing in the door, you know?
There's opportunity there for sure.
Hmm.
And I think when you talk about online doing things yourself, it really becomes about building an audience.
Yeah.
And that's when we talk about maybe briefly about, what you want to say as an artist, who you're talking to, and how that's affected by being Black, being American
Mm.
Black.
Hmm.
Because you can't really, I mean, if you're online, you can kind of have a niche audience if you're Black,
Hmm.
but you still have to have a view of the broader Black community to build your audience.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a white American, for example, you can be completely niche
Hmm.
and build your audience and have a good audience doing something, doing something very specific, for a very
Yeah.
specific group of people. But it's just a numbers game. When you're Black, they just literally, we don't have the numbers to support most niches that don't also speak um, to everybody
Yeah.
in a sense,
Hmm.
meaning something that like, yeah, if the kid likes it, grandma could watch it too, It might not
Yeah.
be for grandma, but she can watch it and like understand some of the jokes and some of the attitudes of all people she also recognizes.
Right.
And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of this industry to admit,
Hmm.
but I think it's true. And I also think that it's important not to think of that as just one thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like the same way even shows like Power, which is like, oh, that's just for, but no, Power is just like a crime show.
Yeah.
Anybody can watch that. They even have
Yeah.
actors on the show from all different ages. There's older people, then there's the kids that get in trouble or whatever, or they have the Book of Canaan, the series. So it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just crime.
Yeah.
Or like a Tyler Perry, which is very broad comedy for everybody, but you put that against like Insecure, which was much more nuanced comedy. But
Hmm.
again, my mom would watch Insecure, you know what I mean? And I could watch Insecure, and it's
Yeah.
really everybody can watch it and enjoy it. Whereas
Hmm.
when you get in other countries and other majorities, it's like, oh, this is actually just not even from like moms and kids don't watch it. It'll be like, this is just for 21 to 30-year-olds who like this
Yeah.
particular thing a whole lot,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And they can build the audience that way. But we typically can't do that.
Hmm.
But there is some space for that online though. And, I think you could find some creators and it's like, this actually, you could tell this is a Black creator who makes stuff just for these people.
Yeah.
Um, so that can exist in like an Instagram, TikTok space, or maybe even on YouTube. But then usually what you find is look how much they have to put out. Look how much content they have to put out. There's a
Yeah.
trade-off for everything.
Hmm.
And when you're working like in our industry, for example, then that's the trade-off is you have to make something like an executive is not like, oh, you're Black people that uh, you know, play Dungeons and Dragons. He's like, no, it's like you make a Black show, it's for Black people. We got to be able to get that entire audience because white people are not going to watch it. So we can't
Hmm.
count. There's no number of white people we can count on.
Hmm.
So we have to count on as many Black people as possible
People.
for it to be
Entire.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you get like, I guess they don't do it so much anymore. No rappers are that big, but it used to be always be rappers in the show. I mean, there's still rappers in the show, and it's usually like the older rappers that are more
Hmm.
universally known because we need to pull from anywhere we can pull from that we know will get more
Yeah.
Black people watching.
I wish it was different, you know? 'Cause I feel
Yeah,
like there's so much pressure on being and I could be wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of pressure being a black creative because how do you get the funding? Or do you get the funding? Or, who will
Yeah.
take a chance on your story, even if it's not quote unquote a black story? Sometimes I feel like as black artists, we do get pigeonholed in a sense that it's just for black people. But it's like, no, it can be for all. You just have to take a chance to want to see it, you know?
Well, I, I again look at it as like one, a chance to stretch your creative muscles, to be
Hmm.
creative, to make something that had the broad appeal, which, used to be the norm. Especially in music, you think about like Motown was making music for everybody,
Hmm.
but it kind of has to pop black first. Even like Sinners, right? Sinners, huge, huge hit last year.
Hmm.
But those first few weeks, it was black people seeing it
Yeah.
and white cinephiles, you know what I mean? Then word got out and there was all, it just kept building,
Yeah.
it just kept building because people like demanded it, and it became must see for everybody. So things do pop, but I think it's actually beneficial to think of things, you know, that most people will watch.
Hmm.
And I think the top white creators, maybe they're not thinking so explicitly that way, because
Yeah.
they don't have to, but they are making things for everybody,
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just general human values or concerns,
Hmm.
The hard part is if you are somebody who your humor or your interest is very niche, and that's really the scope of what you're going to do,
Hmm.
then it's like, oh, how do I build my audience specifically, But
Yeah.
if you're an aspiring creative, I think you always want to just try to capture a big audience or at least a big audience within the genre that you're working at, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some solid advice.
So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily, but it is tough to think about like where does funding come from? And a lot of that is, what's the political vibes at the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
That's not something really in our control.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it can be hard to like really get started. And there's not a lot of black shows on now. We're kind of still in the backlash of all this and this, fake DEI,
Roll back.
anti-DEI campaign and everything.
Yeah.
But, there'll always be enough of us creating and pushing
Hmm.
that when the tides turn again,
We got our time.
yeah, we'll be there and we'll be ready, we'll be ready
Yeah.
with scripts and projects and have all our portfolios and qualifications in order so we can get we can get the next jobs. And people
Yeah.
do look out for each other, not like too much, not like so it's so buddy buddy like that, but
Yeah.
on some level there is, you know, at least a nod toward mentioning someone else or
Hmm.
hiring someone that, you feel can be in a position to create for themselves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not perfect. Definitely.
No. And it will it ever be perfect? Probably not. But I do think there is a void and there's people to fill the void. It's just whether we have the capital to back that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
but the pendulum always swings. So
Pendulum always swings. I think that's so key to keeping just to like keep you going.
yeah, that's the motivation.
Yeah, that is the motivation. Circling back to that
Yeah,
pendulum swinging.
because the more I grow within this industry, it's just like it's a matter of preparation meets opportunity, yes, but also just keep going,
Yeah,
and really keep creating because there is an audience, and I do think it's going to come back to the indie creator eventually because
Hmm.
there is, I think of just, I saw this exhibit. It was at the Academy Museum years ago, but the Reformation exhibit, and talk about the Black history in film
Hmm.
and how we really just had us to really put images of ourselves out there that wasn't depicted in a derogatory way. And as things are anti DEI in the rollbacks, I think it is going to force us to really be that community again and really invest in each other.
Yeah.
So that's, even though it's unfortunate, well, it's fortunate, unfortunate, but I do think, we will prevail and our stories will be told. But I do think we have to continue to support each other.
Yeah. For sure. I agree.
And that's why I
Well,
appreciate you for taking the time to talk to me, or like, you
yeah.
know, help me in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hope this was beneficial for, writing and writing a short or anything else you want to write. And
It it is. You have helped me every time I talk to people. I'm like, this is like a free therapy session. But you have helped
yeah.
me realize like I can take the pressure off of myself. That sometimes you don't have to be perfection. We're striving for perfection, yes, but you don't have to be perfect in that moment.
Hmm.
And it's okay. And you can take a step back. You just have to come back and finish the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Keywords.
Keywords: the pendulum
FTD.
swings and finish the
And
draft.
finish the draft. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I'm motivated. So listen, I think I'm good.
I think that's a job well done. If we gonna get into anything else, we'd be here another hour.
I mean, because I could talk all day,
Right, just
okay? Because
complaining about and
the
then we
ways
start
of the
trading
world.
stories and then it gets,
Yeah.
we have to sign an NDA or something, and then it gets too much.
Yeah. No, but this is good. This is very helpful. I feel encouraged. I feel empowered to continue. And it was the motivation I needed because I was definitely in that the ebb and flow. I was definitely like, maybe I'll
Yeah.
just be an electrician. I don't know. But every time I get in that space, things and opportunities come, and I'm like, all right, just got to keep going, staying on this path.
For sure. Well, it's good talking to you.
Good talking to you too.